The silence of space broke with a scream that reached across the stars. It was not a sound that ears could hear, but something deeper, a cry of pure terror and desperation that touched the minds of anyone sensitive enough to feel it. Captain Hyunwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the endless black of space through the main viewing screen. His ship was on patrol duty in the outer rim, far from Earth and far from anything interesting. It was supposed to be a quiet assignment. Then the distress signal hit. The communications officer, a young woman named Ji-Hai, suddenly gasped and grabbed her head. Her face went pale as she turned to look at Hyunwoo with wide, frightened eyes. "Captain," she whispered, "something is calling for help. The signal, it's not coming through our radio. It's going straight into my mind." Hyunwoo frowned. His crew knew better than to joke about something like this. "What kind of signal?" "Images, sir. I see cities burning, people running and screaming. They look different, not human. And there are ships in the sky, big dark ships shooting at everything below." Commander Sora Park stepped forward from her station. She was Hyunwoo's second-in-command, and the smartest person he knew. "Captain, I'm picking up unusual energy readings from the Cathara system. It's about 6 hours away at maximum speed." Cathara? Hyunwoo had never heard of it. Earth's maps of this region were still incomplete. According to our databases, it's home to a species called the Villani. They sent a formal greeting to Earth 5 years ago, but there was never any follow-up contact. Ji-Hai spoke again, her voice shaking. "The images are getting stronger. I can see them more clearly now. The Villani look almost human, but taller and thinner. Their skin is pale blue and their eyes are large. They're trying to tell me something." She closed her eyes and concentrated. "They say their world is under attack. An empire called the Mordak is destroying everything. They have no weapons, no way to fight back. They're asking anyone who can hear them to help." Hyunwoo felt a cold knot form in his stomach. Earth Command had been very clear about their orders. They were not supposed to get involved in alien conflicts. The human race was still new to the galaxy, still learning who was friendly and who was dangerous. "Captain," Sora said quietly, "Earth Command specifically told us to avoid any military situations involving unknown species." She was right, and Hyunwoo knew it. The smart thing to do would be to report the distress call and let someone else decide what to do. But as he looked at Ji-Hai's face, still twisted with the pain of the images flowing into her mind, he found himself thinking about something else. "Ji-Hee, can you see how many Villani are still alive?" "Millions, sir, but the number keeps getting smaller. The dark ships are bombing their cities one by one. I can feel them dying." Tears started flowing down her cheeks. "They're so scared, Captain. They don't understand why this is happening to them." Hyunwoo walked to his command chair and sat down heavily. He thought about his daughter back on Earth, safe in her school. He thought about what he would want someone to do if she was crying out for help while strangers decided whether saving her was worth the risk. "Sora, how long would it take us to reach Cathara?" 6 hours at maximum speed, sir. "And how long before Earth Command could send a proper response?" Sora checked her computer. "At least 3 weeks, sir. That's assuming they decide to respond." "At all. 3 weeks. By then there might not be any Villani left to save." "Sir," came a voice from across the bridge. It was Taemin Lee, the chief engineer. "I've been listening to the signal frequencies. The Villani technology is completely different from anything we've seen before. It's almost like they've learned to use their thoughts as communication tools." "What does that mean?" "It means they're probably a peaceful species, Captain. You don't develop telepathic communication if you're used to fighting wars. Warriors use radios and secure channels. Only peaceful people would create something that lets everyone hear their thoughts." Dr. Yejin Choi, the ship's medical officer, looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm reading the emotional content of these signals. The Villani aren't just scared, they're confused. They don't understand why anyone would want to hurt them. It's like they've never experienced war before." Dong Hyun, the weapons specialist, spoke from his position near the tactical displays. "Sir, if these Villani really are peaceful, they probably don't have any defenses. This Mordak Empire is probably slaughtering helpless civilians." Hyunwoo closed his eyes and made his decision. So-Ra, set course for Cathara. Maximum speed. Sir, Earth Command will not be happy about this. Earth Command isn't here, we are. He opened his eyes and looked around at his crew. I won't be able to order any of you to fight. This could be considered mutiny. Anyone who wants to object can do so now. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. All right then. Taemin, I want everything you can give me from the engines. Donghyun, start. Preparing our weapon systems. Yejin, get the medical bay ready for casualties. So-Ra, I want you to study everything we know about both the Vellani and this Mordak Empire. What about me, Captain? Ji-Hai asked. Keep listening to that signal. If you can communicate back to the Vellani, tell them help is coming. Ji-Hai nodded and closed her eyes again. After a moment, she smiled slightly. I told them, sir, they're crying. But not from sadness anymore. They say no one has ever come to help them before. As the Indomitable turned toward the Cathara system and accelerated to maximum speed, Hyunwoo wondered what they would find when they arrived. He had no idea that his decision would change the galaxy forever. 6 hours later, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel and found themselves looking at a nightmare. The planet Cathara hung in space like a wounded animal, its surface covered, with fires that could be seen from orbit. Around it, nearly 200 dark ships formed a blockade, their weapons pointed down at the helpless world below. My God, So-Ra whispered. What have we gotten ourselves into? The Mordak fleet was massive. 200 ships hung in space around Cathara like hungry sharks, their dark metal hulls reflecting the light of the burning planet below. Each ship was at least twice the size of the Indomitable, and some were 10 times larger. Captain, So-Ra said, her voice tight with fear. Our sensors are picking up weapon signatures we've never seen before. These ships could destroy us without even trying. Hyunwoo stared at the main screen, watching as the Mordak ships continued their bombardment of the planet. Every few seconds, bright beams of energy would lance down from orbit, and new fires would bloom on the surface. Somewhere down there, millions of Vellani were dying. Open a communication channel, he ordered. Sir, are you sure that's wise? So-Ra asked. We came here to help. Let's start by trying to talk. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that made several crew members gasp. The Mordak commander was clearly not human. His skin was dark gray and covered with scales. His eyes were black holes in a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. When he spoke, his voice was deep and filled with contempt. I am War Commander Vextal of the Mordak Empire. You pilot a ship I do not recognize. State your business in this system before I destroy you. Hyunwoo stood up straight. I am Captain Hyunwoo Kim of the United Earth ship Indomitable. We received a distress call from the planet you're attacking. We're here to offer assistance. Vextal laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Earth? I have never heard of this place. And you speak of offering assistance? You have one small ship. I have 200. Perhaps you do not understand the situation. I understand that you're attacking a peaceful civilization that has done nothing to harm you. I'm asking you to stop. Asking? Vextal's black eyes seemed to grow even darker. You dare to make demands of the Mordak Empire? The Vellani are now our property. They will serve us or die. This is the way of things. On the communications panel, Ji-Hai suddenly cried out. She was still connected to the Vellani telepathic network and her face showed pure horror. Captain, she whispered, he's about to destroy a city, a big one, just to show us what happens when someone opposes them. Vextal, wait, Hyunwoo began, but it was too late. On the main screen, they watched as 3 of the largest Mordak ships turned their weapons toward a bright cluster of lights on the planet's surface. The beams that fired down were so powerful that they lit up half the continent. When the light faded, the city was gone. 1 million Vellani had died in seconds. Ji-Hai screamed and fell to her knees, overwhelmed by the telepathic shock of so many deaths at once. Dr. Yejin rushed to help her, but she was crying too. Somehow, through Ji-Hai's connection, all of them had felt a tiny piece of that terrible moment. Vextal smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. Now you understand. The Mordak Empire takes what it wants. Leave this system, humans, before you join the Vallani in death. The communication ended. The bridge was silent except for Jihai's quiet sobbing. Hyunwoo felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. He had seen war before, had fought in Earth's conflicts, but this was different. This was not war. It was murder. The Mordak were not soldiers, they were butchers. "Sora," he said quietly, "what are our chances in a direct fight? Against 200 ships?" She checked her instruments again. "0, sir. Their technology is more advanced than ours. Their ships are bigger and better armed. In a straight battle, we would last maybe 10 minutes. Then we don't fight a straight battle." Hyunwoo turned to his weapons officer. "Dong-hyun, what do you think?" Dong-hyun had been studying the Mordak fleet formation through his targeting systems. "They're arranged like they expect a traditional space battle, sir. Big ships in the center, smaller ones on the outside. But they're not watching for stealth attacks." "What do you mean?" "Look at their sensor patterns. They're scanning for ships their size or larger. Our ship is small enough that we might be able to slip between their detection grids." Tae-min looked up from his engineering station. "Captain, I've been analyzing their engine signatures. The Mordak ships use a completely different type of power source than ours. Their sensors are designed to look for ships like theirs, not ships like ours. Are you saying they can't see us?" "Not exactly. But if we stay quiet and move carefully, we might be able to get close before they notice us." So-Ra was shaking her head. "Even if we could sneak up on them, what then? We're still just one ship." "Then we hit them where it hurts," Dong-hyun said. "Look at their formation. Those big ships in the center need supplies and communication. If we could take out their supply ships and command vessels, the rest of the fleet would be confused and disorganized," Hyunwoo finished. "It might give the Vallani time to evacuate or hide." Dr. Yejin was helping Jihye back to her feet. "Captain, I'm getting more telepathic messages. The Vallani know we're here. They're asking if we're really going to help them. Tell them yes." "But sir, how can we promise that? Look at what we're facing." Hyunwoo thought about his daughter again. He thought about the million Vallani who had just died while he watched. He thought about what kind of galaxy this would be. If species like the Mordak were allowed to do whatever they wanted to peaceful civilizations. "Because someone has to," he said finally. "Because if we don't try, who will?" He sat down in his command chair and looked around at his crew. "I want to be clear about something. What I'm planning could get us all killed. It will definitely get us in trouble with Earth Command. Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle back to the nearest Earth outpost." Nobody moved. "All right then. Taemin, shut down all non-essential systems. Make us as quiet as possible. Dong-hyun, target their supply ships first, then their communication arrays. Sora, plot us a course through their sensor blind spots." As his crew went to work, Hyunwoo opened a ship-wide communication channel. "This is the captain speaking. In a few minutes, we're going to attack a fleet that outnumbers us 200 to 1. I won't lie to you. Our chances are not good. But down on that planet, millions of innocent people are dying while we watch. The Mordak think that makes them strong. I think it makes them monsters. And monsters need to be stopped." He paused, looking out at the burning planet. "Today we show the galaxy that humans don't abandon people who need help. Today we show them what we do to bullies. Today we fight." The Indomitable moved through space like a ghost. With most of its systems powered down, the ship was nearly invisible to the Mordak sensors. Hyunwoo watched the tactical display as they slipped between the enemy ships, getting closer to their targets. "First target in range," Dong-hyun whispered. "Supply ship just like we planned." Fire. The human weapons were different from what the Mordak expected. Instead of the heavy energy beams the enemy used, human ships fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. The supply ship's shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not chunks of metal moving faster than lightning. The supply ship exploded in a ball of fire. Immediately, alarms started going off throughout the Mordak fleet. "They know we're here now," So-Ra reported, moving to second target. The Indomitable twisted through space, avoiding the searching beams of enemy sensors. Donghyun fired again, this time at a communication ship. Another explosion lit up the darkness. Third target, command vessel on the left flank. This time, the Mordak were ready. As the Indomitable lined up for its attack, 3 enemy ships turned to face them, weapons charging. "Incoming fire!" Sora shouted. The ship shook as enemy beams barely missed them. Taemin pushed the engines beyond their normal limits, and the Indomitable danced away from the attack. "They're fast," Donghyun muttered, then smiled grimly. "But we're faster." For the next hour, the impossible chase continued. The single human ship twisted and turned through the Mordak fleet, striking at targets and vanishing before the enemy could respond. Hyunwoo had never been more proud of his crew. They worked together like parts of a single machine, each person knowing exactly what the others needed, but it couldn't last forever. "Captain," Taemin called out, "engines are starting to overheat. I can give you maybe 10 more minutes at this speed." "How many supply ships have we destroyed?" 7 out of 12, Donghyun reported, "and 4 communication vessels. The fleet is starting to have trouble coordinating their attacks." "It's working," Sora said with surprise. "Look at their formation. They're getting confused. Some ships don't know where to go." But their celebration was cut short by Jihai's voice. "Captain, I'm getting new telepathic signals. The Villani are trying to warn us about something." "What kind of warning?" "They say the Mordak have called for help." "Oh, much bigger fleet is coming." Hyunwoo felt his heart sink. "How much bigger?" "They don't know exact numbers, but they say the sky will be black with ships." Before anyone could respond, the space around them suddenly filled with light. Dozens of new Mordak ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel, taking positions around the planet. "My God," Sora whispered. "There must be 2,000 ships out there now." The main communication screen flickered to life. This time it wasn't Vextal looking at them. The Mordak on the screen was even larger and more frightening. His scales were darker and his eyes seemed to burn with inner fire. "I am Grand Admiral Korthax of the Mordak High Command," he said in a voice like an earthquake. "You have impressed me humans. One small ship against an entire fleet. It shows courage. It also shows stupidity." Hyunwoo stood up. "We're here to protect the Villani. The Villani are slaves now, as you will be if you surrender. Your ship's crew would make interesting specimens for our laboratories." "That's not going to happen." Korthax smiled, showing even more terrifying teeth than Vextal had. "You have fought well, but this ends now. You cannot run forever, and you cannot hide from 2,000 ships. Surrender and I will make your deaths quick." "I have a better idea," Hyunwoo said. "Why don't you leave this system and never come back?" The Mordak Admiral laughed. "Bold words from someone who is about to die. Very well. If you will not surrender, then you will burn with the planet you tried to protect." The communication ended. Around them, the Mordak ships began to form attack formations. "Captain," Taemin said quietly, "the engines are failing. We can't run anymore." "Then we don't run." Hyunwoo sat down in his command chair. "We make our last stand count." But before he could give any orders, Jihai suddenly gasped. Her face went white, then broke into a huge smile. "Captain, the Villani are sending me new images. Something incredible is happening." "What?" "Ships, sir. Hundreds of ships, appearing at the edge of the system. Human ships." The tactical display suddenly lit up with new contacts. Ship after ship was dropping out of faster-than-light travel, forming a massive fleet that stretched across space. "How is that possible?" Sora breathed. "Earth is weeks away." "Not Earth ships," Jihai said, her smile growing even wider. "Ships from all over human space. From the colonies, the mining stations, the exploration fleets, the Villani's telepathic distress call didn't just reach us. It reached every human who was sensitive enough to hear it." Admiral Sujin Kang's face appeared on their communication screen. She was the highest-ranking officer in the human military, and she looked angry enough to bite through steel. "Captain Kim," she said, "I'm going to have some very serious words with you about following orders when this is over, but right now we have a job to finish." Behind her, the bridge of her flagship was bustling with activity. All human ships, this is Admiral Kang. We have come to answer a cry for help. These Mordak think they can murder innocent people while we watch. Let's show them how wrong they are. The space around Kethra suddenly filled with human ships. There were military vessels from Earth's defense fleet, armed merchant ships from the outer colonies, even converted mining ships with improvised weapons. Every human who had heard the Villani's telepathic scream had come to help, but they weren't alone. "Captain," Sora said in amazement, "I'm reading non-human ships in the fleet. Lots of them." Jihi was crying again, but this time from joy. The Villani's telepathic signal spread to other species too. The Altarians are here with their medical ships. The Korvaxi warrior clans have come with their battle fleets. Even species I've never heard of are arriving to help. Grand Admiral Korthax appeared on the communication screen again, but his confident smile was gone. For the first time he looked uncertain. This is impossible. No one challenges the Mordak Empire. No one. Admiral Kang's voice cut through the channel. "You've never met humans before. We don't like bullies." The greatest space battle in galactic history was about to begin. The battle for Kethra began with a roar that shook space itself. 2,000 Mordak ships faced off against a mixed fleet of humans and their new alien allies. The odds were still against them, but somehow that didn't seem to matter anymore. "All ships, attack pattern Delta." Admiral Kang's voice rang out across the communication channels. "Hit them fast, hit them hard, and don't give them time to think." The human fleet moved like nothing the Mordak had ever seen. Instead of the organized, predictable formations most galactic civilizations used, the humans attacked in small groups that seemed to appear and disappear at random. They used tactics that made no sense by normal military standards. "Why are they attacking our flanks instead of our center?" Grand Admiral Korthax demanded from his flagship. "Why are their small ships charging our largest vessels? This is madness." But it was madness that worked. The human commanders had learned something during Earth's many wars that the Mordak had never needed to understand. When you're outnumbered, you don't play by the enemy's rules. Captain Hyunwoo watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as his ship joined the larger battle. Taimin had managed to get the engines working again, and Donghyun was picking off Mordak fighters with precise shots. "Captain," Sora called out, "Admiral Kang is ordering us to join the boarding teams." "Boarding teams? Sir, the humans aren't just trying to destroy the Mordak ships, they're trying to capture them. Admiral Kang says they found something on the enemy vessels that changes everything." Before Hyunwoo could ask what she meant, Dr. Yejin spoke up from her station. "Captain, I'm reading life signs on those Mordak ships. Not just Mordak life signs, dozens of different species." "Prisoners?" "That's what it looks like, sir." Donghyun looked up from his weapons console, his face grim. "Captain, if the Mordak are keeping prisoners from other species..." He didn't need to finish. Everyone understood. The Mordak weren't just conquering worlds, they were collecting people like trophies. "Sora, get us alongside the nearest Mordak cruiser. Donghyun, grab your assault team. We're going aboard." 10 minutes later, Hyunwoo found himself floating through the dark corridors of a Mordak ship, wearing a spacesuit and carrying the heaviest weapon his crew could find. Behind him, Donghyun led a team of Marines who looked like they were ready to fight the entire empire by themselves. The inside of the Mordak ship was as ugly as its crew. The walls were dark metal covered with sharp spikes, and the air smelled like sulfur and decay. But it was the sounds that made Hyunwoo's blood run cold, crying and whimpering coming from deeper in the ship. "This way," Donghyun whispered, following his scanner toward the source of the sounds. They found the prison section 5 levels down. Row after row of small cages filled a room the size of a football field. Inside the cages were beings from dozens of different species, some humanoid, some definitely not, but all clearly intelligent and all clearly terrified. "My God," one of the Marines whispered. "There must be thousands of them." In the nearest cage, a small creature with blue fur and large eyes looked up at them. It spoke in a language none of them understood, but the meaning was clear. It was begging for help. "Get these cages open," Hyunwoo ordered. All of them. As his team worked to free the prisoners, Dong-hyun's scanner picked up movement in the corridor behind them. "Captain, we've got company. Mordak security team heavily armed." The battle that followed was short and brutal. The Mordak were bigger and stronger than humans, but they had never faced enemies who fought with such fury. When humans saw innocent people in cages, something primitive and dangerous woke up inside them. By the time Admiral Kang's voice crackled over their communication devices, Hyunwoo's team had freed over 3,000 prisoners and taken control of the entire ship. "All human ships, this is Admiral Kang. The Mordak fleet is retreating. Repeat, the enemy is running away." Hyunwoo looked out through a porthole and saw that it was true. The remaining Mordak ships were fleeing toward the edge of the system, leaving behind their dead and captured comrades. But the battle wasn't over. As the human and allied fleets regrouped, more ships began appearing at the edge of the system. These weren't Mordak vessels. They were ships from species Hyunwoo had never seen before. "Captain," Jihee's voice came through his helmet radio. "I'm getting telepathic signals from all over the galaxy. The news of what happened here is spreading. Other species are coming to see what we did." Over the next few hours, the space around Cathara filled with ships from across the galaxy. Representatives from the Galactic Council arrived, along with fleets from dozens of different civilizations. They all wanted to see the species that had done the impossible, defeated the Mordak Empire. Counselor Thelmos of the ancient Zephyrians was the first to contact Admiral Kang directly. His image on the communication screen showed a being that looked like it was made of pure light. "Admiral Kang of the humans," he said in a voice like wind chimes. "What you have done today has never been attempted before. The Mordak Empire has ruled through fear for over 1,000 years. No one has ever successfully challenged them." "We didn't challenge them," Admiral Kang replied. "We stopped them. There's a difference." "Indeed. And in doing so, you have changed the galaxy forever. The Galactic Council wishes to extend an invitation to humanity to join our organization. With respect, Counselor, we're not interested in joining any organization that sat back and watched while the Mordak committed genocide." The alien counselor was quiet for a long moment. "You speak harshly, but perhaps you speak truly. The Council has maintained peace through non-interference for many centuries. But you have shown us that sometimes non-interference is the same as approval." Admiral Kang's expression softened slightly. "We're not trying to insult anyone, Counselor, but we've seen what the Mordak do to helpless people. We can't just pretend that's not our problem. Then what do you propose?" "A new organization. One dedicated to protecting species that can't protect themselves. The Mordak Empire is broken, but there are probably other empires out there just like them. Someone needs to make sure they know that bullying innocent people will have consequences." As Hyunwoo listened to the conversation from the captured Mordak ship, he looked around at the freed prisoners. They came from dozens of different worlds, but they all had one thing in common. Now they were free. A small hand tugged at his spacesuit. He looked down to see the blue-furred creature from the first cage he had opened. It was holding something in its tiny hands, a crude drawing made on a piece of metal. The drawing showed stick figures that were clearly meant to be humans, standing between smaller figures and larger, darker ones. The creature spoke in its own language, but somehow Hyunwoo understood. It was saying thank you. Around the galaxy, the news was spreading. The Mordak Empire, which had seemed unstoppable for 1,000 years, had been defeated by a coalition led by a species most people had never heard of. These humans had done something no one thought was possible. They had chosen to fight for people they didn't even know. The age of the Mordak was ending. The age of humans was about to begin. 3 months after the Battle of Cathara, Captain Hyunwoo Kim stood on the surface of the Vellani homeworld, watching something he had never expected to see. Vellani children were playing with human Marines in the rebuilt streets of their capital, city. The war was over, but the work was just beginning. "Captain Kim?" A gentle voice spoke behind him. He turned to see Shinara, the Vellani elder who had first contacted them through the telepathic network. Her pale blue skin was marked with the elegant silver tattoos that showed her high rank among her people. "Elder Shinara, how can I help you?" "I wanted to thank you again, and to give you something." She held out a small crystal that glowed with soft light. This contains the telepathic record of everything that happened here. Every moment of courage your people showed, every life you saved. We have shared these memories with telepathic species across the galaxy. Hyunwoo took the crystal, carefully. Why? Because the galaxy needs to remember what happened here. For too long we all accepted that the strong could do whatever they wanted to the weak. You showed us that this was wrong. As they talked, a shuttle landed nearby. Admiral Sujin Kang stepped out, followed by representatives from dozens of different species. Over the past 3 months, beings from across the galaxy had come to Cathara to see the place where everything changed. "Captain," Admiral Kang said as she approached, "the council meeting is about to begin. Are you ready?" Hyunwoo nodded. Today, they would formally establish the Terran Liberation Coalition, a new organization dedicated to protecting helpless species from aggressors like the Mordak. 23 different civilizations had already agreed to join. The meeting took place in the Villani's Great Assembly Hall, a beautiful building that had been rebuilt after the Mordak bombing. Representatives from dozens of species sat in a circle, with humans taking their place among equals. Counselor Thelmos of the Zephyrians spoke first. 3 months ago, the galaxy changed forever. A species that had never before been heard of answered a cry for help and did what the rest of us thought was impossible. Today we gather to ensure that such courage is never needed again. Admiral Kang stood up. The Terran Liberation Coalition has a simple mission. No species will be allowed to commit genocide while we watch. Any civilization that attacks helpless people will face the combined response of our alliance. "And what of the Mordak?" asked General Vortak of the Korvaxi warrior clans. "Their empire is broken, but their people still exist." "The Mordak Republic has agreed to our terms," Sora Park replied. She had been promoted to admiral after the battle, and now served as the coalition's chief strategist. "They will help us find and free the remaining prisoners from their old empire. They will also provide information about other aggressive civilizations in the galaxy." It was true. After their defeat at Cathara, the Mordak Empire had collapsed almost overnight. The former slaves had risen up on world after world, and the Mordak military had surrendered rather than face the growing coalition fleet. Grand Admiral Korthax himself now sat in a prison on Earth, awaiting trial for war crimes. But many of his former officers had joined the new Mordak Republic, working to undo the damage their empire had caused. "What about species that don't want our protection?" asked Ambassador Nalthara of the Nexari. "Not every civilization will welcome human intervention." "Then we don't intervene," Admiral Kang said simply. "This isn't about building an empire. This is about giving people a choice. If a species wants to fight its own battles, that's their right. But if they call for help, we'll answer." Dr. Yejin Choi, now serving as the coalition's medical coordinator, spoke up. "We've established medical stations throughout this sector of space. Any species that needs help dealing with disease, natural disasters, or other problems can request assistance. We're not just a military organization. We're here to help in any way we can." As the meeting continued, Hyunwoo found his mind wandering. Through the tall windows of the assembly hall, he could see human and alien children playing together in the gardens outside. Ships from a dozen different species moved through the sky above, working together to rebuild what the Mordak had destroyed. It wasn't perfect. There were still disagreements between species, still conflicts that needed to be resolved. But something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the weak had protectors. "Captain Kim," Counselor Thelmos said, drawing his attention back to the meeting. "As the human who first answered the Villani distress call, we would like you to speak for the coalition." Hyunwoo stood up, feeling the weight of dozens of different gazes upon him. "I'm not a politician or a diplomat," he began. "I'm just a ship captain who couldn't stand by and watch innocent people die." He paused, thinking about everything that had happened since that day in space. 3 months ago, my crew and I heard a cry for help. We could have ignored it. We could have followed orders and left the Villani to die. But we didn't. because that's not who humans are. He looked around. The room had all the different species represented there. The galaxy is full of different civilizations, different ways of thinking, different beliefs. But there's one thing we all have in common. We all understand the difference between right and wrong. We all know that the strong shouldn't prey on the weak. For too long, species like the Mordak made us forget that. They made us believe that cruelty was just the way things had to be. But they were wrong. Today, we prove that. He gestured toward the windows, where the sound of children's laughter could be heard even through the glass. The Terran Liberation Coalition isn't about humans ruling the galaxy. It's about all of us working together to make sure that no one ever has to face their darkest hour alone. It's about making sure that when someone cries for help, someone will answer. The room was silent for a moment. Then Elder Shinara began to applaud, and the sound was taken up by beings across the chamber. Outside, the children continued to play under a sky filled with ships from a dozen worlds all working together. Later that evening, Hyunwoo stood alone on the balcony of his temporary quarters, looking up at the stars. The Indomitable was docked at the new orbital station above Cathera, undergoing repairs and upgrades. Tomorrow, he and his crew would return to space, patrolling the galaxy as part of the Coalition fleet. Captain? Taemin Lee appeared in the doorway behind him. The crew is having a celebration dinner. Are you coming? In a minute. Hyunwoo continued to look at the stars. Taemin, do you ever wonder if we did the right thing? What do you mean, sir? We disobeyed orders, we started a war, we changed the entire galaxy. What if we were wrong? Taemin joined him at the balcony railing. Captain, do you remember what the Villani telepathic signal felt like? When Ji-Hai first received it? Yes. Terror. Desperation. Hopelessness. And do you remember what it felt like 3 months later when the children started playing in the streets again? Hyunwoo smiled. Joy, hope, gratitude. Then we did the right thing, sir. As they walked back inside to join their crew, neither of them noticed the small figure watching from a nearby rooftop. It was one of the blue-furred prisoners they had freed from the Mordak ship, now living safely on Cathera with dozens of others from his species. In his tiny hands he held a new drawing, this one showing ships with human markings flying between the stars, carrying help to anyone who needed it. The galaxy had learned an important lesson at Cathera. The most dangerous beings in the universe weren't the ones with the biggest weapons or the strongest armies. They were the ones who would risk everything to protect strangers, who would answer a cry for help even when it meant facing impossible odds. They were the ones who refused to let evil win. And now, the galaxy was a little bit safer, because those dangerous beings were watching over it.